The espresso machine hissed at 3:09 a.m., and I was the only one listening. That was my life. Maya Bennett, 24 years old, barista at Neon Cup, the only 24-hour cafe on Delancey Street. I made drinks for people who never learned my name. I wiped counters for men in $1,000 suits who looked through me like glass. I had perfected the art of disappearing while standing still. But invisibility has a strange side effect. When you're never watched, you watch everything. I noticed things others missed, the way the night security guard at the bank across the street changed his route every Thursday, the way the black SUV that idled at the corner rotated its crew every 40 minutes, never the same two men twice. I'd been cataloging the rhythms of this city for years without knowing why. My manager Derek called it overthinking. My mother called it anxiety. I called it the only thing I was good at. Tonight was slow. Two drunk college kids sharing a croissant in the corner booth, an old man nursing black coffee like it owed him something. The rain had cleared most of the foot traffic, leaving only the hard yellow glow of the street lamps and the sound of water moving through the gutters. I was restocking the pastry case when I noticed the SUV. Same model as last week, different plates. It hadn't moved in 22 minutes, engine still running, no one getting out. The windows were tinted past the legal limit. It was parked directly across from my door, not at the corner, not near the bank, directly across from me. I felt the hairs rise on my arm. I told myself it was nothing, a driver waiting for someone, a late-night deal that had nothing to do with espresso or croissants or Maya Bennett, girl of the margins. Then the bell above the door chimed. Not the soft, patient chime of a customer wanting coffee. Desperate, irregular, like someone falling forward into it. I turned. She hit the counter before I could move. She was young, 17, maybe 18, and her gray hoodie was soaked through with rain and something that wasn't rain, dark, spreading fast across her left side. Her black hair was plastered to her face, and her fingers, when they found my wrist, were ice cold and iron strong. "Take me to the hospital," she rasped. Her voice was cracked gravel. "Before my father finds me." My training kicked in before my fear did. I'd done a basic first aid course 3 years ago for a job I never got. I pressed my hand against her side without thinking, feeling the warmth immediately soak through my palm. "Call 911, I shouted toward the corner booth. The college kids stared, neither moved. The girl, she shook her head violently. No, no police, no calls. Her eyes locked onto mine, and they were not the eyes of a victim. They were dark, focused, and furious, like a general who had been betrayed by her own map. "Just you. Take me yourself." I glanced up at the window. The SUV hadn't moved, but now there was a second car, black, no plates, parked at the far end of the block. As I watched, a figure in a dark jacket stepped out and walked slowly toward the cafe entrance with the deliberate patience of someone who was never in a hurry because they never had to be. Tactical positioning, 2 vehicles, one at each end. They were boxing the block. This wasn't a mugging. This was a net. "What's your name?" I said, lowering my voice. "Elena." Under the fluorescent light, her wet hair shifted and I saw it. Behind her left ear, inked in clean black lines, a sneak swallowing its own tail, small enough to miss, precise enough to mean something. I didn't know what it meant, not yet. The front door opened, cold air swept in. The woman who entered didn't look at the menu. She looked at every corner of the room in the span of 2 seconds, exits, cameras, occupants, with the quiet efficiency of someone counting inventory. She wore no expression. Her eyes settled on Elena's back and stayed there. "Back room," I said quietly, gripping Elena's arm. "Now, can you walk?" "I can run," Elena said through her teeth. "Don't. Walk like you work here." I moved Elena behind the service counter before the woman in black crossed half the cafe floor. The 2 college kids finally registered that something was wrong. One of them stood up. I caught his eye and shook my head once, sharply. He sat back down. Survival instinct, I supposed, was contagious. The woman paused at the counter. She was compact, controlled. Her dark hair was pulled back so severely it looked architectural. She set both hands flat on the counter. No bag, no phone, no visible weapon, which somehow made her more frightening than if she had been holding a gun. "Coffee?" she said. Her accent was subtle, Central American maybe. Her tone was the kind that expected no questions. "For here or to go?" I asked. A pause. Her eyes moved to the door behind me. "For here." I turned to the machine. My hands were moving on autopilot, grind, tamp, pull, while my mind was 3 rooms ahead. The back room had a fire exit. The fire exit opened onto the service alley. The alley ran north toward Mercy General, 4 blocks through the tightest streets of this part of the city. But Elena was losing blood. She couldn't walk 4 blocks. I had a better idea. I triggered the industrial dishwasher. The machine detonated a wall of steam into the back room, loud, opaque, disorienting. Elena sucked in a sharp breath but didn't make a sound. Good instincts. "Sorry, steam valve, give me 1 second." I called toward the counter. The woman's hand moved slightly toward her jacket. I watched the reflection in the stainless steel of the espresso machine. She was waiting, listening, deciding. "Your coffee's ready," I said, setting the cup down. She looked at it, then at me. For 3 seconds, neither of us breathed. Then she picked up the cup and walked to a window seat facing the street. She pulled out a phone and pressed it to her ear, her back straight, her eyes on the door. Reporting in, which meant I had maybe 4 minutes before the net closed. I grabbed my car keys from the hook beneath the register, squeezed Elena's arm once in the dark, and whispered the only plan I had. My car was a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a crocked dashboard and a passenger door that only opened from the outside. It was parked in the service lane behind the cafe, invisible between a recycling truck and a city utility van. That was the point. Elena dropped into the passenger seat with a controlled gasp, pressing both hands against her side. Her jaw was set so tight I could see the muscle working beneath her cheek. "How bad?" I asked, reversing out before my door was fully shut. "Manageable," she said, which told me nothing. I didn't take the main street. I went north through the alley, cut east on a service road the city used for utility trucks, and dropped into the network of lanes behind the Delancey warehouses. I had walked these routes for 2 years of my breaks, memorizing them like other people memorized song lyrics, without a reason, just because my brain wouldn't stop. Tonight, I was grateful for every useless habit I ever had. "They'll have the main grid covered," Elena said, her voice stronger now, steadier. She was reading the street with the same focused assessment as the woman in the cafe. "I know," I said. "I'm not taking the main grid." She looked at me for the first time since we'd left. "You knew her," I said, not a question. A pause. "She works for a man named Salazar, Victor Salazar." "And your father?" The silence that followed had weight. "My father runs the Cruz family," she said finally, like the words cost her something. "And tonight both of them want the same thing, me." She turned to look out the rain-blurred window. I turned onto the last alley before the hospital's service entrance. "You're not just running from Salazar." "No. You're running from your father." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The way her hands had stopped shaking, not from relief but from resolution, told me everything. She wasn't afraid of what was behind her. She was afraid of what waited for her if she was brought back. I pulled up to the ER loading bay and cut the engine. "Can you trust the doctors here?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I can trust one." Dr. Sophia Lynn was the kind of tired that lived behind the eyes. The residency forged, seen too much exhaustion of a woman who had made peace with chaos. She was finishing a chart at the nursing station when I pushed through the service entrance with Elena's arm over my shoulders. Sophia took one look and didn't ask questions. That's why I trusted her. "Trauma 2, she said, already moving. The ER was understaffed. 2 nurses down the hall were managing a cardiac case. The overhead PA was running on a loop about a delayed response team. Sophia was doing preliminary assessment alone, and the picture wasn't good. Elena had a deep laceration along her left flank and had lost more blood than her composure suggested. "I need hands," Sophia said, not looking up from the wound. I was already beside her. Tell me what to do, I said. Sophia glanced up once. Barista, no scrubs, civilian hands. In another situation, she might have said no. Instead, she grabbed a pair of gloves from the tray and handed them to me without ceremony. Pressure here. Don't move, don't let go. I didn't. Elena watched me through eyes that were getting glossy at the edges. Her lips moved. You should have left me at the cafe. Probably, I agreed. Why didn't you? I didn't have a clean answer. I pressed harder and felt the slow resistance of a wound beginning to respond. Then the lights went out. Full black. Emergency generators kicked on 3 seconds later, flooding the room in dim red amber. Somewhere down the hall, a monitor began to alarm. Sophia swore once, sharp and clean. Power cut, manual everything. Through the narrow window of the trauma bay, I could see the main corridor. Movement. 2 figures in dark clothes moving with purpose past the civilian crowd. Not panicked, not confused, walking toward something. They knew exactly where they were going. Sophia, I said quietly. She followed my gaze. How many exits on this floor? I asked. She looked at me differently now, not at the civilian with borrowed gloves, at something else. 4, she said, but only one that bypasses the security desk. Show me, Elena said from the table, trying to sit up. Not yet, I said, pressing her back down. We need 60 more seconds. Down the hall, a door crashed open. Rafael Cruz did not arrive. He materialized. One moment, the corridor was emergency-lit chaos, nurses rerouting, patients confused, the alarms still cycling. And then he was simply there, at the end of the hall, still as a monument. He was tall, silver at the temples. He wore a charcoal suit that had no business being in a hospital at 4 in the morning, and his hands were clasped behind his back with the patience of a man who had never once been made to wait. The gold ring on his right hand caught the red emergency light. A serpent. I recognized it from Elena's tattoo. Same coil, same precision. 2 men in dark suits flanked him. They swept the corridor with their eyes, and no one in the hall seemed to understand why they were moving away from them without deciding to. Raphael stopped outside the trauma bay door. He looked through the narrow window, and his expression when he saw Elena was not relief. It was possession. Sophia stepped slightly in front of me. This is a restricted medical area. You cannot... Dr. Lin, his voice was quiet, almost kind. You've done your part. Step aside. Sophia didn't move. His eyes shifted to me. He studied my face the way someone reads a page they expected to be blank and finds writing on it instead. You brought her here, he said. She needed a hospital, I said. She needed to come home. He said it without heat, which was worse than anger. You've involved yourself in something that will cost you significantly, Miss Bennett, I said. Maya Bennett. Miss Bennett. He said my name like he was filing it somewhere. Step away from my daughter. Elena's hand found my wrist from the table behind me. Her grip was the same iron-cold hold from the cafe counter, but different now, less desperate, more deliberate. I didn't step away. Raphael's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted, the faintest recalibration, like a man adjusting a scope. You have no idea what you're standing in front of, he said. I know she's my patient, and you're not family until she says you are. The elevator at the end of the hall opened with a soft chime. Victor Salazar stepped out, in a white suit. The fluorescent lights in the ICU wing flickered once, then surrendered to the red pulse of the emergency generators. The air tasted of ozone and money. Rafael Cruz stood at the south end of the corridor. Victor Salazar stepped off the elevator at the north. Between them, Officer Daniel Brooks, service weapon drawn, pointing at both men with the increasingly clear understanding that he was standing between 2 tectonic plates. Victor smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Raphael, hiding your air in a public ward, almost poetic. He stepped over a toppled IV stand without looking down, like a dying bird returning to a common nest. You crossed onto my territory the moment you entered this building, Raphael said. His voice was the kind of quiet that made rooms smaller. You won't leave it.
La Sombra is already in the vents, Victor spread his hands pleasantly. You're guarding the front door while the back is wide open. Officer Brooks's weapon tracked back and forth between them. Drop the weapons, both of you. This is a federal medical facility. Be quiet, officer. Raphael didn't look at him. The adults are speaking. The double doors of the recovery room opened. I walked out. I wasn't armed. I was holding a surgical tray. Elena's blood was drying on my forearm. I stepped into the center of the hallway and stood there, equidistant between both men, and the fact that neither of them immediately spoke told me the move had landed. Victor laughed first. The barista. Move aside, little girl. She's a patient in critical condition. The next person who opens that door without my say sets off a sedative drip I've already preloaded. She will not be conscious enough to be useful to either of you for 72 hours. That was not entirely true, but neither man knew enough medicine to challenge it. Cruz's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with something that looked uncomfortably close to interest. You're overstepping, he said. I'm doing my job. I kept my voice level, since no one in this hallway seems capable of doing theirs without a body count. From above, a soft, deliberate sound. The ceiling tile directly behind me shifted. La Sombra dropped. La Sombra landed in a crouch, behind me, silent, exact. She straightened slowly, and in the red emergency light, her face was the same blank precision I'd cataloged back at the cafe counter. The standoff recalibrated in an instant. Victor's smile widened. Raphael's men reached for their weapons. Officer Brooks made a sound that was almost a word. I didn't turn around. Lucia, I said. She paused, 1/2 second. Enough. That's your name, isn't it? Lucia, La Sombra, Victor's best asset. I let that sit for a beat. The woman who was also photographed in Raphael's compound 14 months ago. Twice. Silence. Victor's smile didn't drop, but it changed, became something thinner. She's bluffing, he said. There's a nurse on this floor named Kevin Marsh. He rerouted 3 patients from this wing in the last 20 minutes. He's the one who cut the power at the junction box on sub-level 2, and he reports to you. I looked at Victor directly now. I've been watching your people move through this building for the last hour and a half. I'm a barista. I watch rooms for a living. I reached behind the nurse's station without breaking eye contact and pressed the emergency call button, not the standard one, the maintenance line, sub-level 2. 40 seconds later, the sound of a brief struggle carried through the ventilation shaft. Then Victor's voice muffled, swearing. Cruz's men had been waiting on sub-level 2 because I had told them where to wait 15 minutes ago when Raphael had first appeared in the corridor, and I made the calculation that the enemy of my enemy was temporarily, tactically useful. Lucia, La Sombra, looked at the back of my head for a long moment. Then she stepped to the side. Victor's expression finally cracked, just at the edges, just enough. Officer Brooks, wisely, for the first time all evening, chose this moment to call for backup. The standoff exhaled. Raphael Cruz looked at me across the corridor with an expression I couldn't name. Not gratitude, something older and more dangerous than gratitude. Miss Bennett, he said. She stays with me until she's stable. Then we discuss terms. 3 months later, the Neon Cup had new ownership. The espresso machine was the same. The cracked corner booth was the same. The bell above the door still chimed, softer now somehow, like even it learned to be more deliberate. The city outside moved the way it always had, fast, indifferent, full of people who didn't see what was right in front of them. I sat in the window booth at 9 a.m. with a cortado I'd made myself out of habit. Elena slid in across from me at 9:02. She didn't look like the girl who bled on my counter. She wore a clean black jacket, her hair swept back, the snake tattoo behind her ear no longer something to hide. She moved through the room the way her father moved through rooms, like the space rearranged itself quietly around her without being asked. She was 17. She would be terrifying at 30. She set a thin folder on the table between us. My father's legal team finalized the arrangement, she said. The cafe is in your name. The The car, the new one, is registered under a shell company that doesn't exist on paper until you need it to. She pushed the folder toward me. And this. I opened it. One page, an embossed serpent at the top. My name, followed by a title I read twice. Director of External Relations, Cruz family. I looked up. Fixer, she translated, reading my expression. The word they use internally is fixer. You are the person no one sees coming. The woman in every room that powerful men decide isn't worth watching. She almost smiled. My father's words, not mine. What are your words? I asked. She was quiet for a moment. Outside, the city went on its way. You stood in a hallway between two of the most dangerous men in this city, and the only thing you were holding was a surgical tray and a bluff. She looked at me steadily. I don't have a word for that yet, but I will. I picked up my coffee. The bell above the door chimed deliberately, measured. A man in a dark suit entered, scanned the room, found me, and waited. I didn't stand up immediately. I finished my cortado first. Then I closed the folder, tucked it under my arm, and walked toward whatever came next, visible, finally, to everyone who mattered.